Hey folks, Nick here from another BookTube channel, and welcome to the first installment of the Swamp Thing read-along. This is where I am going to be going through every issue of Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run, one issue at a time. This is Swamp Thing number 20. This is Alan Moore's first writing on the series. He took over writing duties from Martin Pasco, and Moore inherited a pretty much failing, middling monster book. It wasn't anything too impressive. I'm pretty sure sales were dipping, so Alan Moore saw an opportunity to do something really special with this character, and this was the beginning of that. However, this particular issue, even though it's the start of Alan Moore's run, it doesn't quite feel like Alan Moore's book yet, because he has to tie up some loose ends from the Pasco run, and that's the name of the story. The name of the story is Loose Ends, because he's got to bring some of these threads to a close, the ones that he doesn't care about, that he doesn't want to write about. He has to lay the groundwork for his own story to tell by getting rid of Pasco's stuff. So without further ado, let's jump in. First, I do want to talk about the cover. I really like this cover by Tom Yates. I don't love his Swamp Thing, his actual Swamp Thing. I think he's a little flat. But as far as composition goes, I think this cover is excellent. I love that Swamp Thing is front and center as a focal point down here, and there's this bright red flame that's separating him from the background characters. We've got a clear foreground, middle ground, background, and Swamp Thing is at our focal point, but surrounding him are his pursuers that are all angled directly, angled inward towards him. They're aiming their guns at him. It creates a great eye line. We even have it in the sky here. There's helicopters swarming around him. So it just creates a really great holistic view of just this encircling angle towards Swamp Thing who's running away. So really great composition here. Really great cover. And we take a look at the opening splash page. The art in this book is done by Dan Day on pencils. And I wasn't familiar with Dan Day at all. I Googled him before I filmed this, and it turns out he is the brother of Gene Day. Gene Day was also an excellent penciler, did some great work on Masters of Kung Fu for Marvel. Actually, the story goes, he literally worked himself into an early grave over that title, which is really sad. But really, I guess it runs in the family, because Dan Day does a really good job here, and it doesn't look too different from when Stephen Bissette is going to take over in the next issue, where he takes over the main penciling duties. I think the inks by John Totleben also contribute to that quite a bit. So looking at the splash page, there's not really a story going on in this splash page. Swamp Thing is just on display here, knocking down some columns, got some ghostly figures in the background. It's just a really great image. Nice way to start off. When we turn, we do get a spread, which is really cool. So in the previous issue here, Swamp Thing was facing off against his bitter enemy, Anton Arcane, who's this disfigured looking man down here. Anton Arcane was a man who gave up his humanity so that he can become something monstrous, and he led an army of unmen, and Anton Arcane wanted to shape the world in his new image and the image of his unmen. And I've got here the Bronze Age Swamp Thing Omnibus. This collects every Swamp Thing comic before the issue we're looking at here. So this is the entire history of Swamp Thing before what we see, and this is what the Unmen and Anton Arcane look like. This is art by Stephen Bissette, so you get a sneak peek at what the series is going to look like moving forward as well. This big bugman is Anton Arcane. These are his Unmen spitting out some gross cobwebs to trap this person here. So as you can tell, this is a horror series. This is a little bit for mature readers. This isn't really for kids. So some scary stuff in here. While we've got this issue open here, I just want to read to you what Swamp Thing's inner monologue read like before Alan Moore. Because that's really, the biggest contribution Alan Moore made was his incredible, beautiful writing style. And I just want to make sure you have the context. So this is Swamp Thing's inner monologue before. Evidently, Arcane's device didn't have time to work on me. Cobweb must be some kind of energy net. It's disintegrating. Arcane's accident must have disrupted its power source. I still can't believe what Kripman did. There's only one way I can repay his sacrifice, by seeing to it that he didn't die in vain. So it's a little utilitarian. It's a bit expositional. There's nothing really, nothing lyrical about it. It's just pretty utilitarian writing. But here we get Swamp Thing looking for Arcane's body, because Arcane's airship has crashed, and Swamp Thing wants to make sure that he's dead. So he does find Anton, and we get this inner monologue. I don't think I realized before how important you were to my life, Arcane. I don't think I really understood before this moment. You were my opposite. I had my humanity taken away from me. I've been trying to claw it back. You started out human and threw it all away. You did it deliberately. We defined each other, didn't we? By understanding you, I came that much closer to understanding myself. And now you're dead. Really dead. And what am I going to do now? So it's very introspective. This is, borderline philosophical stuff that, it's no longer just something narrating what he's seeing and what's going on. We're getting to actually feel his feelings and see his thoughts. And that is going to continue throughout the rest of this run. Flipping over here, we get I like this layout of this. It is a pretty standard 9-panel grid setup, but we get the framing of Swamp Thing on the side. Even though Swamp Thing's not in this scene, they just want to remind us, this is his book. This is what this is all about. These are the shady government folks that are tracking Swamp Thing. General Sunderland is Swamp Thing's human enemy. His goal is basically just to track down Swamp Thing, kill him, find out his secrets as to why he is a sentient swamp monster. I hate that there's an ad here for Bubble Yum and Return of the Jedi toys, because if we didn't have that, we would get this really great bookend of the framing sequence. But alas, got to pay the bills. But that scene is ended here, bookended, and I really like these. The introduction of the Newton's Cradle, just introducing chaos as Sunderland plans to send out troops to track down Swamp Thing and try to eliminate him. On this page here, we meet Dennis Barclay and Liz Tremaine. They are friends of Swamp Thing. Dennis Barclay was a doctor who used to work for Sunderland, but he's realized the error of his ways. He's fighting with Swamp Thing now. Liz was a journalist, I'm pretty sure, and they, in the previous issue, they slept together. And now Dennis is talking about we and us, and Liz is like, "Oh, hold on there, cowboy. That was just like a one-night thing. Don't get ahead of yourself." And he doesn't take it too well. He really thought they had something special. I really like this layout. I like, again, we have these weird framing images on the side here. There's a really great progression here as well, starting in this panel, where they are walking towards the frame. And also in the background, there's a small dot that kind of keeps getting bigger and bigger until it becomes this helicopter that is pushing in, following behind them. So good progression there. So on this page here, Swamp Thing is still in his feelings about the demise of Anton Arcane. And we get a great panel here where Swamp Thing says, "Things like us can't survive in the light, Arcane. Perhaps you realize that right at the end. Maybe you were right. Maybe we're better off dead. Maybe the world has run out of room for monsters." But meanwhile, in the background, the army truck is pulling up. So we're getting that, like, oh no, there's still plenty of room left. It's just that the monsters look a lot like the U.S. Army. And on this page here, another great framing device using these beer bottles that are overturned, because this is where we get to meet Matt Cable and Abigail Arcane. They are also allies of Swamp Thing. They are married. Matt was a police detective, I think, maybe FBI, I forget. But he was a police detective. Abby is Anton Arcane's niece, and she helped, in the fight against Anton. So they're married, but Matt, he recently underwent electroshock therapy at the hands of Sunderland. So he has started to fall deep into alcoholism. And also as a result of the electroshock therapy, he starts to be able to kind of conjure up light illusions that he can interact with. And he's been going really off the rails with it. And we get that kind of shown here in the composition, this extreme Dutch angle where the house is nearly on its side where they're staying. And we get a lot of these, boom, boom, these crooked angles. Nothing is head on. Their relationship is in turmoil, and the panel composition reflects that. And over here, Matt is claiming to be done with the drink, to be done with his light hallucinations, and Abby isn't quite ready to take him back yet. She still remembers only the bad times. So she leaves, and he immediately goes back to a drink, and he conjures up a sexy woman to take care of his needs in a way that Abby would not. Again, this is a mature comic, and it definitely leans into that. We go back to the army chasing... Actually, no, we don't go back to the army. We go to this beautiful centerfold ad for Saturday morning cartoons. Check it out. Mr. T, the Hulk. Don't miss it. Set your DVR. Now we go back here to Dennis and Liz, who are returning to their hotel. And I like this page, and I don't like this page, and I'll tell you why. So they're trying to get back into their hotel room because they left their medical bag in there. Dennis left his medical bag, and a kind stranger offers to go retrieve the bag for them. I like this long vertical panel, and I like the widescreen cinematic panels that just kind of pace out this scene. It's creating a lot of it's creating suspense because it's really drawing things out quite a bit. And it ultimately leads to a big boom. So really well done there, but I don't love the choice here, because what we get is we're supposed to read down these 4 panels, and then the room explodes, and then Dennis says, Liz, because he thinks that she went into the room. But the way that I read this, the way if I see a panel like this, I read this, and then I immediately move to the right. So that's what I expect to read next. So it kind of reads weird where he's calling for Liz first, and then the explosion happens. So just a little bit funky. I think maybe that was a little bit of a misstep. But overall, not bad. I like the explosion, the splash of red where there's no other red on the page. That's a continued motif throughout this as well. We're going to see more of that coming up. This one here, the people who planted the bomb, they're trying to make sure that Liz and Dennis were actually taken care of. And we move back to the army. The army has cornered Swamp Thing in the forest. They flooded it with lights so he can't hide in the shadows. And so his only course of action left is to fight back and try to escape. This is another page here that I think reads a little bit weird, because we left Matt in his living room with his little sex illusion and his alcoholism. So I thought he was kind of settling in for the night. He appears to be out for a walk here, and he and Abby bump into each other in the woods, and this military helicopter blows up their home. That's what they say. That was our house. That's where we live. That read really weird to me until they said that was our house. I didn't know that that's what this was. So maybe a better establishing shot was needed there. But again, good explosion, good use of color. I really love this panel here of Swamp Thing coming out of the shadow. That half light on this side of his face, and just that big monstrous hand on this guy's terrified face. He's got the big eyes, the teeth that show through. Really great. Again, the flame from the flamethrower really illuminating, breaking up all the green that we're seeing here. And fantastic spread right here. Swamp Thing is being chased down by helicopters. Helicopter gets a little bit too close to him. They hover a little too low. He reaches up and grabs them. Good silhouette here of him reaching up and grabbing them. Slams the helicopter down into the ground, creating this huge explosion of red right in the center of the page. Really, really smart layout composition here. The ground troops are closing in. They're chasing him with the flamethrower. Like this image as well, just the taking all the color out, just a chiaroscuro kind of image there. Closing in, and Swamp Thing decides, I got to make a break for it. Just run for the tree line, you know. And waiting for him are snipers that got him in their sights, and they just riddle him with bullets. And another really great vertical panel where we get the verticality of the bullets punching through him, the light on the other side, his shadow blowing out against the white of the searchlights. So really, again, really smart. And then here, riddled with bullets, crumpling to the ground because he's just got nothing left. Really great imagery. This is a terrific triptych. And I love this moment of quiet where all the color is gone and we just have Swamp Thing in the center, and the pursuers are, you know, again, facing at him, but keeping their distance because they're still like kind of scared of him. But it wraps up. Swamp Thing, is it? Yeah, it's dead. Next up, the anatomy lesson. So there you go. Alan Moore's first issue, and he kills Swamp Thing. Can't wait to see where it goes from here. I really hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if I missed anything that you want to point out in the comments. That's you know, I'm not an expert at comic books. I just enjoy them a great deal. I'm not a great art critic. I'm not a great writing critic. I just love books, and I love this series. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you very much for spending some time with me today. But now it's time to get back to reading.